the other one that drives me crazy is people think that you need to have a PhD in physics in order to do anything in the industry. I have a business degree and I've done pretty well, and I'm sure there are lots of other people who have who don't have PhDs in physics and they work in quantum.
Welcome to Women in Quantum.
Welcome back to Women in Quantum, the podcast where curiosity meets the quantum frontier. I'm Candice Gilhooly, and in each episode, we spotlight the brilliant women shaping the future of quantum computing, quantum sensing, quantum communications, and beyond. From researchers and founders to ecosystem builders and bold career switchers, these are the voices expanding what is possible in one of the world's most transformative technologies. If you've ever wondered whether there's a place for you in quantum, you are exactly in the right place. Let's step into the quantum realm together. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Petra Soderling. She is CEO, advisor, EU and USA, quantum, dual use, government. Petra, tell us all, what is it that you do? You do so much.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here. When you were saying like this is for quantum computing and sensing and communications and beyond, I felt like, yeah, beyond. That's me. I'm beyond. What is it that I do? That's a good question. So what I do currently is I am the CEO of my consulting company or advisory services. I've been doing this for 4 years. I still don't know what to call it. I help people to achieve things. I do that with quantum mainly and with governments mainly. I do work with some companies, so I help some US companies to set up in Europe. I help some European companies to set up in the US, but mainly I work with governments and NGOs and large institutions, banks and such.
So take us back to the beginning. Okay, you're a young girl, you're in grammar school. What were the subjects that you had a proclivity for?
Arts, um, philosophy, maybe public policy later, but first it was just arts and humanities. I was not interested in science at all.
And where is it that you grew up?
I grew up in Finland, Helsinki,
Okay.
and that's where I went to school. And that's where I started my very, very long and very windy path towards where I am today in quantum and governments.
Well, tell us about your journey.
Okay, so you have time. This is a long story. I, so I graduated in Finland in the middle of the worst recession ever. There were no jobs at all. So I had to find a job. I found a job selling forklift trucks. As I was selling forklift trucks, I advanced in the company and was also able to market them. So I became the marketing manager of this forklift truck company. And the company also sold Suzuki motorbikes and outboard engines. And I was the person responsible for doing the events, so the showcasing the Suzuki motorcycle. So I did the motorcycle events and the boating events. And then year 2000, Nokia was a big thing in Finland, and they were looking for an events manager, and I got the job doing events for products I had never heard of, text messaging service centers and multimedia messaging service centers in the telecommunications infrastructure realm. And I'm like a forklift truck person. I have no idea what's going on here. But as I was doing those events, I also had to be responsible for the printed materials. And we were selling these service centers to mobile operators, carriers. And all of this material was written by the engineers, but the buyers were not engineers, they were business people. So I realized I have to help the engineers write their pitch, their decks so that the buyers would understand how to do this. And as I did this, I got really interested in the technology. I really wanted to understand how these products work and what they do. So I went into writing white papers. So I left the events stage behind and I started to write white papers for these products for Nokia networks. And then with that job, these white papers were used in standardization. So I went into standardization, helping Nokia standardize these new products, which was the telecommunications infrastructure. But then later also I went to work for the device unit, which was the mobile phones and the smartphones. So then I was in standardization, standardizing user interfaces and different layers in the stack for Nokia. Then I jumped into research center and blah blah. I was at Nokia for 12 years in different roles. Um, then at one point, a new product came into the market. It was called the iPhone and just killed all the phone business for everyone else. And so I left the company and I left Finland. I started my own startup company. I moved to New York City. I spent how many years? Maybe 10 years in the US, running two different startup companies. I lived in New York, New Orleans, Colorado. And then at some point, I think it was 2018, I was called to represent Finland. So I lived in the US, and the Finnish government asked me to do foreign direct investment for Finland, meaning find American companies, science or technology companies who might be interested in setting up their operations in Finland. And I'm taking this role very seriously, of course. So I kind of start to think to myself, how do I find something in Finland that's so interesting that American companies would listen to me? Like, why would they want to go to Finland to do something? And that's how I discovered quantum. Because in
Okay.
2020, the Finnish government was buying a quantum computer and it was an open call. So I thought, hey, this is a good opportunity for me to go talk to the American quantum companies and say, you should submit a bid to this call. And that was 6 years ago, and I just fell in love with quantum, and I've been all in quantum ever since. And that's the story.
That's fantastic. That's honestly, that's a fantastic story. I like it's so incredibly singular. I haven't heard anything else like that. That was great. Um, did you have any early mentors or influencers that helped shape, your entrepreneurial direction, your desire for startups, your inquisitive nature? Did you have any mentors that
You know,
helped you with that?
I wish I had. I wish I had. There was one role model early on. She was the CEO of Nokia Networks business. Her name is Sari Baldorf. And she is an iconic woman because in the early days, so those listeners who remember the times before the iPhone, you had Motorola was number one in mobile phones back in the 1990s and early 2000s. And then Nokia came, it was number two. And Sari, my role model, she was responsible for setting up the telecommunications, the networks business, while all the men went to work with the mobile phones, the sexier part. So she was doing the boring part, and the guys were doing the sexy part. And long and behold, the boring part, the telecommunications run by her, ended up being more successful and is still alive today. And it is what Nokia is today. And all the sexy stuff that all the guys did is long gone.
It's gone.
So she's still
Mhm.
my icon and my role model. She's no longer there.
Right. So when you look back, what part of your path feels the most nonlinear or unexpected?
All of it, all
Oh,
of it. I never had any plans. I just go where the wind blows. Not really where the wind blows, but if there's a really interesting opportunity, I just go there. I don't have big plans ever. I do sometimes my husband and I we make these treasure maps for like a year or 2 years, and then we're really excited about our treasure maps, and we kind of forget about it, but then it stays in the back of our minds, and then a couple of years later we go back and look at the treasure map if if we follow it, and usually pretty much, but not exactly. So there is some kind of planning and thinking, but not like exactly.
so for our listeners who are new to your work, how would you describe your current focus in the quantum space?
Um, well, I guess, uh, yeah, that's a really good question. I would say what I would like to be is an expert on how governments invest in deep tech, including quantum, for economic growth. That was the subject of my book that I wrote, actually. So when I went to work for the Finnish government, I also realized that I have experience from working in a big corporate environment working as a startup entrepreneur and working for the government. And then during COVID, I was thinking like, this is a pretty unique point of view that I've been working in all of these three different domains. So I wrote a book about how governments should look at deep tech and innovation in general, and how to use that, how to grow that, how to create new industries like quantum for long-term economic growth. So my role broadly currently is to help regions, governments um, with their strategies. So I've been writing quite a few quantum strategies for countries and regions.
So what problem in quantum are you personally most excited to help solve right now?
It's turning it into an industry, which we're kind of there already, but we're still like
We're
we
very
haven't.
foundational. We're still very foundational, I think.
Yes, exactly. And if you benchmark the learnings from other deep tech industries, it's always been very government driven. So you cannot create these new industries without government. You think about nuclear energy. For a long time, it was publicly funded, and now there's a private industry. Space was completely publicly funded for a long time. Only recently, after decades, has there been a private space industry. So I want to help governments realize their potential, invest in quantum, and ensure that it's going to be turned into a private industry that will then, in turn, help the governments by offering jobs, paying taxes, creating infrastructure, help with the national security concerns, and so forth.
So you might have just answered this, but where do you see the biggest technical bottleneck in your domain today?
To be honest, I'm not following the quantum technology that closely because I feel that my role is to take a step back and look at things more holistically. Uh, if so, for example, every morning I open my LinkedIn and there's a new quantum breakthrough. There's always a company saying, "Oh,
Hmm.
we've just completed this major milestone. This is the big thing. Now this is going to solve everything." And then wait a week or a couple of days, there's a new company or new technology, a new breakthrough. So I see my role is being like the more long-term trajectory type of person that looks at things with perspective of the history and a longer term view, and then looking at it from the whole society's point of view, not just a company or a country even, but globally, because this is a global international industry.
But what is one misconception people still have about quantum that drives you a little crazy?
Um, there's there's so many, Candace. Oh my gosh. Um, well, I mean, one of the things that people ask is when am I going to have a quantum computer on my desk? So
You're not
that's
going
like
to.
that's one, like
Right.
never. Well, maybe never. Okay, I don't want to be the IBM guy, but probably not ever. The other one that drives me crazy is people think that you need to have a PhD in physics in order to do anything in the industry. I have a business degree and I've done pretty well, and I'm sure there are lots of other people who have uh, who don't have PhDs in physics, and they work in quantum. And then there's this binary belief that um, quantum will solve everything or quantum will solve nothing. On like it drove me crazy when the CEO of Nvidia said like quantum is so far away, like it's not gonna solve anything, and all the stock prices of the quantum companies crashed overnight because of what he said. And then a week later, he's like, "No, actually, I think it does have potential." And then the stock prices come up, and like it's not a binary thing. It's not something that will be there one day or will not be there one day. It's like people don't realize the gradual adoption and the hybrid architectures and so forth. And one important thing I've just spoke to some African governments is that people think that it's way too expensive. So there is a possibility for even for developing countries to get into the game without having huge budgets. You have online access, you have physics departments in universities, so you already have all this stuff. Just get in the game. Don't think about the budget.
So, what skills do you think are underrated but critical for success in quantum today?
People skills, communication skills, human skills. It's so many times people talk about the technology, but they don't think that it's people doing all these things. It's people in labs creating the science. It's people in the business development talking to other people in other business development departments. It's people in the government talking to, the um, government relationships people in the quantum companies. Um, that's one. And then, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. It'll come back to me.
Should I go on with another?
Yeah, what was the
Okay.
question? So it was
Oh,
the skill.
the skills that people need today. And we talked about communication, people skills. Those are more soft skills, interdisciplinary skills, I think are incredibly vital to this field.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about.
Okay, let's leave it at that.
Okay. So you said that you take a step back and you're kind of looking at the whole thing holistically. So which regions or ecosystems are you watching the most closely right now?
Um, so I'm Finnish American, so I have two passports. I have one leg in North America in the United States and one leg in Europe. So those are my two regions. I look at public policy, technology policy from both perspectives, the US and EU, what they're doing separately and what they're doing together, and hopefully more rather than less. Um, that's one thing. And then the other thing is what governments can do. So there's a lot the governments can do. There's the education, there's tariffs, there's regulation, export controls, movement of talent, there is public funding, there's public-private financing. There's a whole, there's a rich plethora of things that governments can do. Uh, it's a long list, but my goal is to bring it all together and kind of showcase to governments you need to think of all of these different things when you're advancing or kicking off your quantum industry.
So what signals should investors, policymakers, or industry leaders be paying closer attention to?
Well, technology breakthroughs, obviously. So I'm not saying that it's not important. It is important. But more important is, I mean, I'm biased, of course, but I would look at the government strategies. I think because these are so much government funded technologies, you should take a look at what the government strategies say. Which countries or which regions are focused more on the national security aspect of it, which regions are more focused on enabling their companies to grow, which sectors are maybe focusing only on one modality rather than all of the modalities, and so forth. Um, it's a long-term investment. It's a risky investment. So obviously, investors are going to be looking at all of these things, but like, my spiel is the government angle, so I hope they're also looking at the government strategies.
Well, as you said, you have one foot in the States, you've got one foot in Finland. What has your experience been as a woman building a career in quantum?
Yeah, that's, when I knew that I would be coming to this podcast and I knew you would be asking me that question, I thought like I don't really have a good answer for that, and that really bothered me. I consider myself a feminist. I've always worked to make sure that we lift all the women. I'm lifting the women around me. Um, but lately, I've been thinking that it's not enough for me to just lift the women close to me and around me. I need to broaden the horizon and lift all of the women, even the ones that I don't know and the ones that work with me. So I actually last week, because I knew I would be coming here, I wrote my weekly newsletter on women and technology for this very reason. And this is not my personal experience, but just I wanted to look at the generic role of women in technology. And there are surprising things. Okay, now I want to pull up this chart. So
Yes.
there are a few things that we don't really talk about that much. So one of them is the role of the role of women in the early, like 1800s and 1900s. There is a number of women who have invented amazing things. Like there's Ada Lovelace, said to be the inventor of software. Hedy Lamarr invented the frequency hopping radio. Grace Hopper invented the COBOL programming language that we still use in the government infrastructure today. There's Marie Curie in radiation and so forth. So these women who lived in an era when they were not able to own a bank account or own any property. They weren't able to work. They weren't able to go to a bar. These women managed to invent these incredible, groundbreaking technologies. So that's like one aspect of it. But the other one, I want to show your viewers. By the way, is this going on an audio only podcast?
No, no, it's audio and video.
Okay. So what I'm sharing now on screen, can you see it?
Yes.
This is a chart. This is the percentage of bachelor's degrees conferred to women in the USA, starting from 1970, ending in 2010. So 1970, excuse me, you can see that women entered in all of these fields. So you've got agriculture, social sciences, business, math, architecture, physical sciences, including computer science. So computer science is this very thin gray line, if you
Mhm.
that. So women jumped into computer science just like they jumped into these other fields. But something happened here in 1984. And what happened was the launch of the personal computer. So 1984, those of us who were alive might remember the Christmas present for girls was the Cabbage Patch doll.
Mhm.
Christmas present for boys was a personal computer for gaming. And that was groundbreaking for this gray line. So women were felt that because of personal computer was mainly marketed to boys, and it was mainly marketed to play games. It created this kind of bubble where games and PCs and computers and computer science was seen as something for boys only, and that really had a huge effect. And computer science never recovered from that. So even today, we have uh, we have slightly more people in computer science in than in 1970. Isn't that amazing, Candice?
That's shocking, but completely like remembering that's exactly what was going on. I mean,
Exactly.
it's
And
that's
it's
exactly what was
and it's
going
the
on.
only field that never recovered. All these other fields, women are more than half of biology, communications, math is up there. So the women are almost 50% of bachelors in math and statistics, but not in computer science and engineering.
Hmm.
So that's kind of crazy. So those are kind of like the talking points or the messages that I want to put out there when we talk about women and technology. That it's and of course there are all these other things like you want diversity in your team, your product development team or your management team. You need you need diversity, diverse voices so you can create products for diverse groups of people. And you want a diverse management team so that you make decisions that are looked at from different angles, from different points of view. So women tend to have a lower risk tolerance threshold than men.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but it's really good to look at things from both perspectives.
Right. No, that was fascinating. That was really fascinating, that chart. So, have there been moments where you had to push past doubt, either internally or externally, and how did you manage that?
As a woman,
Yes,
oh yeah,
as a professional, as a woman.
yeah, I have. Oh my gosh, I have so many examples. I think I'm the type of person, even in my private life, that I always want to make things better. I always want to push for a better outcome. And I've been that person in all of the boardrooms or conference rooms or meeting rooms wherever I've been. And I remember so many examples. One of them was in product development meeting with Nokia. It was like 40 people in the room. We were looking at the roadmaps, and everyone in the room, there's like 3 women and 40 guys. Everyone is like, yeah, yeah, whoever's presenting, yeah, this looks good. And I'm the only person who stands up and like, this is like, guys, this is not good enough. You have to raise the bar, like at least 20, 30%. This is not good enough. And everyone's just looking at me like, shut up, Petra, sit down. They're like, we want to go home and we want to go play tennis and do our things. Like, we don't want to stay here over time because you think that we should do better. There was oh, there was, I should tell this story. There was I was at the Nokia Research Center. I wasn't in the management team. I was the head of marketing, but I wasn't in the management team because marketing is not important enough. But I was very close to the management team, and they wanted to launch a fellowship program, and all the people in the management team suggested their like people for the long list of fellows, like like the long list of people who where they would pick the fellow from. And I looked at the list. It was about 100 names, and maybe 5% were women or something, 5, 15. I can't remember exactly. It was such a long time ago. And I went to the team like, what is this? Like, guys, what's going on here? And they're like, well, we just named the best. And I was really pushing back. I said, no, you like really, you named the best. I'm gonna give you a list of 100 women's names, and I worked with HR, and I did my own list, which was 100% women. And I've done things like this. I was a year ago in a quantum conference in Europe, big conference room. They were talking about standardization, and I represent Finland in the ISO IEC JTC 3 group, where they standardize quantum. And all of the European member states are there independently. They don't have an EU-wide strategy on standards, whereas the US has a huge delegation, China has a huge delegation. So I stand up, I'm like, guys, we have to get together. We have to get a European strategy for standards, not just the Finnish strategy or German strategy. And the people on the stage are saying, well, yeah, but it's not so simple, Petra, it's really difficult. I'm like, yeah, it's difficult, that's why we have to solve it. Come on, guys, we're in quantum. It's difficult, it's a challenge, let's do it. And everyone's just like, she's such a troublemaker. So I have had a lot of situations like that, and looking back, I don't regret being the person standing up. I don't regret being the person raising the issue, raising the awareness. But if I had to correct anything, I would correct the way I presented myself. Because, especially I've been thinking about the guys in the management team nominating the best people they think to be the technology fellow of Nokia Research Center. All of these men were thinking about people they know, from the school or their friends, people they trust, people they genuinely thought would be the best person. And if they would nominate 5 people, it would be 4 men and 1 woman. Whereas the women in the management team, they would usually nominate 50% men, 50% women. That is statistical in voting patterns. Men tend to vote for men, women tend to vote men and women. So
Interesting.
none of those people, none of those men had bad intentions when they nominated. So for me to go in and hurt their feelings was bad. It was bad judgment. I was very young, so I regret that. So it's just something that I've learned to be better at communications and empathy. Empathy, that's the key word.
What's one piece of advice? Maybe you just answered it. What's one piece of advice you'd give your younger self at the start of your quantum journey?
Yeah, have more empathy for sure. Yeah. And just I don't want to give advice to anyone, well, for myself, but one of the things that we often have to do, especially for younger women in the industry, is to do a lot of homework, make sure we have answers to all the questions. We don't want to be caught in a technical conversation, without having all the answers. Um, um, Also, so many times people push back and say, well, you don't have a technical background, you don't have a technology degree, so you can't understand what we're talking about. So to identify what your value is and communicate, being able to communicate. And I'm still learning this. Like in the intro, you said, what are you doing now? I was like, I'm not sure. So to learn to identify your value and to communicate your value in a very concise manner is important. And yeah, always prepare for a plan B. That's my advice.
How do you stay motivated during setbacks or complex research challenges?
Um, I love to work with young people. I'm mentoring two young people. It's fantastic. Um, I just have hope for the future, and I also stay motivated by logging off from the computer and from social media. That is very healthy. I got chicken yesterday. I have 5 chicken now, and I have 3 dogs. So just go for a walk with with the dogs and play with the chicken. That's one way of staying motivated. Especially with quantum. It's because it's a natural science, so I just love to think about not just quantum as computers, which is, by the way, one of the things why I got so fascinated about quantum in the first place is it's not computer science. It's not plastic and metal and wires. Well, it has some wires, but because it's a natural science, because it's atoms, it's nature. So
Mhm.
finally, we're like really merging biology and computers. And I think that's really fascinating.
What does success mean to you in the context of a long and evolving career?
Um, Success. Um, I Someone told me a few weeks ago they were moving on with their career, and they told me that, Petra, there's 3 stages in your career. One is first stage is you work for other people, and then the second stage is you work with other people, and then the third stage is other people work for you. And that kind of stuck with me. I thought, like, that doesn't feel complete. And I was thinking about it. And I would add a fourth stage is when you go back in the beginning and work for other people again. So the ability to make a difference, the ability to help others and be the change. When you have a big movement like a political or I don't know any big movements, and you track back in history, it always starts with one person. There's
Right.
whatever it is, there's one person always in the very beginning. So like to me a success like when I die, and if there's anything in the world that somebody tracks back and said she was the person, like that would be a total success for me. That would make me happy.
Was there a time when you were tempted to give up? And what kept you going?
uh never give up. No, I mean there have been times when I have reinvented myself over and over and over. I like the example that I gave, I mentioned that I was the head of marketing at Nokia Research Center. In large corporations, they do reorgs every year or every other year. And the people who don't have a place, they get sacked basically. And I found after one reorg, I found myself in the Nokia Research Center with scientists having a business degree. And I think I had 2 months to create a new job for myself and my team. I had a team um, before we would be laid off. And I just figured like, hey, this is research. Who gives the money to research? It's investors. What do investors get in return? They get long-term plans. They get long-term revenue. We should have a marketing department that tells investors why they should invest in long-term research and what they're getting in return. So I pitched my case and was able to basically create this marketing department for the research unit from scratch. And then, I be moving to different countries, starting many companies. Um, so yeah, reinventing yourself is something that keeps you going.
How do you keep learning and growing when technology moves so fast?
Well, I think the thing is I step back. That's like my safety valve. I cannot, focus on the technical development because it's so fast. Especially in quantum, there are different modalities, different use cases. If you look at the tools and the supply chains, it's just so complicated. You have to take a step back and figure out where your strength is, and that's what I'm doing.
What book, idea, or person has influenced your thinking most,
Oh my
outside
gosh.
or inside of quantum?
Oof, what book? Oh, I know what it is. It is. You should have warned me. Hold on. Good thing I had it close by because I can't remember. It is Sparks of Genius. Oh, you can't see it. The 13 Thinking Tools of the World's Most Creative People. It's about polymaths. It's a really good book. Actually, um, I met a person in the launch party of the International Year of Quantum in Paris more than a year
Mhm.
ago. I was sitting in a dinner and there was a young man beside me and he had this book. And, I reached over and said, "What is that book?" And he told me that he always carries this book with him. So I went back home and I got the book. And then he approached me and asked me to be his mentor. So I've been mentoring him for a year. And we did a podcast episode on my podcast, Deep Pockets, on this book. And I think the polymath thinking is marrying different fields into your experience really helps be creative. For example, my husband makes wine. So when I watch him design new wines and go into the fields and doing the whole agriculture thing, it helps me figure out, things for me in quantum or things for me in consulting or advisory services, which is strange, but that's how the human mind works.
I've asked you about advice you'd give your younger self. What's the best piece of advice someone has given you?
Ooh, what is the piece of advice someone has given me? I guess it's my dad. It's just be yourself, Petra. Just be yourself always.
Probably the most powerful piece of advice you could ever give a woman would
Yeah,
be that, to trust yourself, believe in yourself. Don't let people make you think you're less.
exactly.
Absolutely. Right?
Yeah, yeah. And
Looking,
he always said like, "I trust you," and that was like the biggest
that's
push.
big,
Like when he said like he trusts me, I have to give it all I have. I have to give my best to whatever I'm doing.
right? I remember, I think I must have been about 12, and I said something, and my mother turned to me and she said, "Okay, this is the last moment that you doubt yourself ever."
Yeah, yeah. Good advice.
I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, let's say it again." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." I
Yeah.
It was really powerful. Looking ahead, what future in quantum are you personally most excited to help build?
It's something I don't know too much about, but what excites me the most is the intersection of quantum and biology. So what is going to happen? Because the reason why I love quantum is because it's a natural science. So how do we take the atoms and the physics and the biology and marry those and what's going to happen from there? So I'm really looking forward to seeing developments in that area.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
So for young women or career switchers who are listening today, what's the single most important first step they could take to enter into the quantum ecosystem?
Yeah, I think it's probably what I mentioned already is identify your value and practice how to communicate your value. Because to me, I have a business degree, so to me, everything is selling and buying. So whatever it is that even when you're a researcher, even if you don't realize it, you're selling something every time you open your mouth or you send out an email. So for young women, identify where you're really good at, what it is that you can bring to the table, and just be courageous and go out there and give it all you got and do your homework. And also something that's not talked about very much is as a young woman or a woman or anybody, if you're in a team or in an environment where you are trying to do your best and you still feel that you're not appreciated, it's okay to quit. Don't stick around forever if it's not working. Someone else will appreciate you. Like it's not a failure to leave if things are not working out for you. I think I've seen so many people push, push, push and be miserable. If they don't appreciate you, someone else will.
Hmm. So, what role do partnerships between academia, startups, and large enterprises play in accelerating progress in this
That's
in this
that
sector?
is such an important question. Like um I mentioned the reason why I wrote my book is I have worked for a big corporation. I've worked as a startup entrepreneur and in the government, and they all these different entities they really have a different language. They don't have just different acronyms, but they speak a different language. Um, they're all important and they all have a part to play. But I think we also should be mindful that they need to work together better than they are. And I'll give you examples. So when I worked in a big corporate, um, we would often get emails or phone calls saying, "Hey, I have a really great idea for you, a product idea. You should do this and this product." And we would say, "Yeah, we just spent 6 months investigating this and decided it's not worth it. But thanks so much for your idea." And they would get offended every time, like, "Oh, you don't understand. This is the greatest idea ever." And we're like, "No, you don't understand. It doesn't have business value." So for people to understand that if just because you don't see a company put out a product that you think would be great, it doesn't mean they never thought about it. They're not stupid. Like people think like that the corporates didn't they just didn't think to do this thing. But yes, they did, and they decided not to do it. So that's one thing. The other example that I noticed very quickly when I went from the corporate environment to the startup world is that corporate people tend to think that startup people are just innovative guys hanging around with nothing to do, and are a free resource. So, for example, corporates they organize hackathons, and they think that the startup company is going to spend weeks of their time coming up with ideas or prototypes for this corporate. They're going to fly to another country and with the whole management team and spend days in your location for free. No, they have investors. They have to, do their own work. So they're not a free resource for you, Mr. Corporate Guy. Um, that is something like I've over and over I had to explain to corporates like, no, startups don't work that way. And then another thing that still kind of rubs me the wrong way is how private sector people think that people in the government are stupid. And so, for example, I don't know if you remember, if you saw when Mark Zuckerberg went to Congress 2 years ago,
Hmm.
and there was a senator like in his 80s who didn't understand the business model. He asked like, "How do you make money?" And Zuckerberg said, "Well, we run ads." And everyone in the private tech industry were laughing like, "Oh, these senators are so stupid. They have no idea what's going on." That's not true. There are super smart people in the government. Um, the White House Office of Science and Technology, for example, the quantum person that was there, Charles Tahan, went to work for Microsoft. Super smart scientist. Like he didn't go from being a stupid government person to being a brilliant scientist at Microsoft overnight. No, he was always a brilliant scientist. So we have all these super smart, brilliant people in government, and the people in the private sector should not overlook that talent. I forgot what you asked me, but anyway, that
No,
was a long rant.
it was good. It was good. I liked it. What recent breakthrough in the field made you sit up and say, "Oh, okay, this is moving faster than people think"?
I don't follow that. I don't follow that. Um, I'm I will let the scientists do the science, and whichever science wins, I will take it to the government and help the government invest in it.
Okay. Okay. Are there any tools or communities or resources that you would recommend to anyone who's curious about quantum?
Um, I'm probably not the best person to ask that question at Impact Quantum, of course. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm a member in a lot of women in quantum groups on LinkedIn. I think they're all great. I can't name one over another.
Has there been a moment where you felt particularly supported and heard by other women in technology?
Oh my gosh, Candice, your questions. Ah, uh, sadly, I can't remember. That's so sad. There
I was
must have
wondering,
been. There
was
must
there
have
like
been.
a tech conference that you'd gone to and and then what someone else had said really resonated with you and then you know, it it really turned into something, but no, not yet.
Well, let me answer this way. When I wrote my newsletter last week about women and technology, one of the things that I was thinking about is, whenever you go to a tech conference, there's a track for women and whatever the technology is.
Yes.
And I rarely attend those tracks uh, for two reasons. One is the timing and the location of that track is always the worst possible. They shove that track wherever there's like free time. So it usually overlaps with something more interesting, which is the actual subject or the topic of the conference. And the other one is the reason why I rarely go or attend is because it's just women. It's women on stage and women in the audience. It's women talking to women, and it's very cozy and fuzzy and it's really nice. Um, but like, what is happening now in the world, in society, in politics, in gender, I don't know what to call it, what's happening has made me think that, like I mentioned earlier, I need to broaden my sphere of influence. I need to talk to a wider audience, a wider audience of women, wider audience of men. And I've revised my thinking. I actually think, excuse me, I actually think that these tracks are useful because women need safe spaces. Women need women need that fuzzy and cozy environment once in a while because it's so harsh out there.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair to say. And I think that the more that we get out there and show, different faces, I think that really does help younger women see themselves in other people to say, wait a minute, I like business. I like this. I like that. She liked business. She went here. She did that. It opens up the path for those that are coming up. And I
Yeah,
just think it's so vitally important that we show them that there is a space. And
absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's funny. I never had an imposter syndrome in technology. So when I was in those rooms with all the guys, I always felt like I belong here. I have a role here. I belong here. But I think I might have had a little bit of imposter syndrome with the women. Like I felt that who am I to tell any woman what they should do or what they shouldn't do, or I'm not successful enough to be a role model to anyone. So I think I'm just like I'm over 50 and I'm discovering all these new um, aspects of myself and my thinking. So I think I need to work on my imposter syndrome with women, and I am mentoring women, and women approach me and ask me how I, you know, how I've done my career or how I ended up where I am, and I hope I can help them. I hope I have something to offer. If I do, that's great.
I think you do. I think the fact that you're trying to take such positive steps to make it better for other women, again, lifting up those around us, and leading by example, putting ourselves out there and saying, you too can do this and you too deserve it. And that's really kind of what Women in Quantum to me is all about. Where can people find out more about what you're doing and who you are if they want to reach out?
PetraSoderling.com or
There
LinkedIn.
you go.
I'm
You heard
always
it
on
here
LinkedIn.
first. You heard it here first. There you go. So, Petra, again, this has been fantastic. I thank you so much for your time and doing this with us today. And I hope that we get to speak again.
Super. Thanks so much, Candice.